Hey everyone, we are going back in time again. This episode is with wellness expert Georgia Argiris. Georgia talks about mind and body. This is a topic we hear a lot about. I think she does a great job explaining how she deals with mind and body for herself and her clients through writing, meditation, yoga, fitness. She talks about all of it, and it's done in a way that makes perfect sense. So well done, Georgia. I just re-listened to this episode and I think she did a wonderful job. So please enjoy my conversation with wellness expert Georgia. Well, I am here with Georgia Argiris. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. So I'm really excited to talk to you. We met in a very interesting way. You are my sister's personal trainer, and my sister and I ran a half marathon, and you are such an amazing personal trainer. You were there at the half marathon just to cheer her on.
I was.
So,
I'm so proud of her.
do
And
most
you.
personal trainers do that? That seems a bit above and beyond the call of duty to me.
Not that I know of, but I personally go to every event that any of my clients have that relates to anything that's going on in their lives that they would like me to be at. And I always offer to come, kind of push it a little bit, just because I want to be there supporting them and for them to know how proud I am of them.
Okay, well, I was very impressed with that. My sister recently sent me your website because you were starting something new and wanted some feedback. And I started reading your website, seeing the variety of things that you offer, and I got to learn a little bit more about you. The name of your website is As You Are Wellness. Tell me about the main things that you offer.
Sure, of course. So, group fitness instructing and personal training sessions and Reiki sessions, and then also Reiki trainings, so certifications, attunements, and trainings in Reiki, and then also yoga and writing
Okay,
session
so that last one was
and
the one
meditation.
that, oh,
Yeah.
oh, in meditation. Okay, so the writing one was the one that kind of sparked my brain. And you and
Okay.
I had a conversation, and I went on your website, and you have a blog where you have all sorts of writing. So I'd like to start with that. So the writing that I read, it's a lot. It's all first person. It's a lot about heartbreak, a lot of love lost, a lot about a little bit of obsession. You talk a lot about dreams, and you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about like talking to yourself in the future. Tell me about that subject matter and just where that all comes from.
Thank you for asking. Well, it comes from experience. So writing is a way that I cope and process with things. So anything that's going on in my life, whether it's something that's good, something that I'm excited about, or something that's traumatic, or something that's difficult or needs to be processed more. So I use writing as a way to not judge it, like not put a label on it versus like it being negative or positive. I just see it for what it is and write through it to process it and to go through it. And then everything is written either as it's happening or reflecting back, but it's all been from personal experience.
Now, when you are writing, are you feeling non-judgmental about it? It sounds like what you just described is sort of like meditation, where you're supposed to have all of, just thoughts come and don't judge it.
I feel that writing is a way that I've always been able to just release things and to see things as they are versus in the like my conscious self, it's like a process that I've had to do with letting go of like the ego part of it and putting a judgment on it or a label on it, or I should be feeling this way, or I shouldn't be feeling this, or I should be letting this go. With my writing, I just see it as it is, and I let the subconscious take over where there's no judgments, and I'm free to say whatever I want and to feel how I want without any expectations or limits on those feelings.
When did you discover writing as a way to help you process being a human?
when I was 8 years old and I was in third grade, and my teacher read us a book, which is still my favorite book, called When You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And I always wondered, after she read the book the rest of the day, what happened to the mouse afterwards. So I went home and told my mom and grandma about it. And my grandma said, do you want to write about what happens to the mouse? Like, what would happen next? Let's write about it. And so I wrote about what would happen to the mouse in the next steps.
So this would have been third grade?
Yeah, I was in third grade, and that's how it started.
And what was that experience like, writing about what happened to the mouse? Like, did that make you feel, how did that make you feel or think?
It definitely made me look at things differently, like versus being like putting like this is what should happen. I just kind of thought of all these different ideas, like, well, what could happen, like what all these different possibilities, and then I started to explore them with my writing, and I let the rational brain move to the side and just let creativity take over and imagination, and just let whatever came to me. I just went with it and wrote it down.
Nice. Now, did you continue writing after that, or like
Yeah.
how did writing, how was it part of your life after that post mouse book incident?
After the first mouse book, which there actually was books that came out about the mouse after that, which I found funny. I still think I like my version of the mouse. After that, after that, I would still write, and I used it as a way to internalize it and let my internal self speak to my external self. A lot of times growing up, and even as an adult now at 39, I feel like sometimes I let my external self lead, and like what I should be doing or what I should be thinking, especially at this age or as a woman or as a daughter, in these different aspects of my life. And with the writing, it allows the internal self to come out and say, no, we're going to take all of those thoughts away and just let whatever comes. And then that helps my external self meet my internal self.
What you just described certainly makes sense, but that is a pretty sophisticated model and idea, which I'm assuming you did not have that when you were 8. You were just doing something that made you feel good. Is that, I mean, did you continually do that
Yeah.
consistently?
I just can. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, you continually did it. And, when you were 9, when you you were writing to make you, like, why were you writing at 9? Like, what was a 9-year-old thinking she was getting out of it?
To see the possibilities of what could happen if I didn't think of, well, I'm 9 years old, so this is what you should think or what you should feel. I just wrote as anything was a possibility of what I would be thinking about. Like anything could happen with a subject I was thinking about. What were all of these different possibilities? And that's how I started when I was 8, and I wrote about the mouse, was all the endless possibilities. And then my grandma and me picked one and then went with that one. And then I continued to write like that.
Okay, good. And did you, like when you were in school, was writing, the academic part of writing, was that of interest to you? It was. Okay, so you always liked all that.
Yeah, I love it. I loved it then. I loved being in school. I always call myself a nerd still. I love learning so much, and I love being in school, and I love writing and researching things.
Wonderful.
Still something that I really enjoy doing. But I did love doing like the academic writing. I do like doing that type of writing too.
Okay, so you like all of it.
All of it.
Fantastic. Now, when did meditation become a thing?
When I was when I was at Harper, I had a teacher, Professor Charles Brown, who was this big influence on my life because of his kindness and his desire to explore other cultures and explore worldly ideals. And he taught these ideals in this class that I took, which is honors philosophies class, and religions. And we learned about different religions and cultures, and we presented about them. And I presented talking about energy and the chakras. And in this class, after I did that, he said, that gave me an idea. And he said this in front of the class: we should all meditate together. And I wasn't really familiar with it. I was familiar with energies, but not necessarily meditation. And he had another teacher come in to our class and teach us how to meditate. So we all sat at our desks and she had us sit up tall and she took us and Professor Brown through guided meditation. And then she said to us, if you're interested, we have a meditation club, and it's where students and faculty can come together and meditate. And me and Professor Brown would go every week, and that's how I learned to meditate, was with them.
Now, is meditation, do you have a regular practice?
Yes.
Can I ask you about it?
Of course, you can ask me.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a personal question.
You can ask me.
And can you tell me about what you do? And I'll tell you, I can share with you my experience with it.
Yeah, of course. So the first thing that I do is I find a comfortable, like any way that I'm comfortable. Sometimes if I lay down, I'm not gonna lie, I will fall asleep. And so I try not to lay down when I meditate, just because for me personally, I know I will most likely fall asleep. So in order for that not to happen, I find a comfortable seated position. So it could be cross-legged or in lotus or half lotus, or my legs out long, whatever feels comfortable that day. No like judgments or rules about that. And then I sit up and then I just focus on my breath. So like without judging it, just witnessing my breath wherever it is. And then I start to come into my yogic breath, where I expand my belly forward and I fill it with air. And then I just take in everything around me through my senses. So like auditory, like what are my thoughts, feelings, not judging them again, like any sensations, any noises, just taking it in. And then as I exhale, I squeeze my belly to my spine and release all of that. And then repeat that process. And then after doing that for whatever feels good, maybe it's a few seconds, a few minutes, maybe longer, whatever, depending that day it is, I'll then start to make my inhales longer.
Yep.
And then make my exhales longer than my inhales. So sometimes if I have a lot of stuff going on in my head, I'll start to count. For example, like I'll count to 7 as I inhale and then 9 as I exhale. And I'll say the numbers out loud. I always count backwards. I don't know why. And then I'll take my hands anywhere if I'm not feeling in my body. Like if I feel like I'm somewhere else mentally or I just can't connect with myself, I'll take my hands and put them like here or on my heart space or like my abdomen, anywhere that feels good, just to connect with myself. And then if I still need to even be more grounded and connected to earth, I'll take my feet and put them on the ground, and then my hands, and then place them on the ground so you can exchange the energy with the earth. And then if it's the winter time and I can't do it outside, I just do it inside.
Okay. And how is this a daily practice for you?
Yes, a few times a day. And like, it's, for example, if I'm in a busy day, you could just go into the bathroom. Like you can do it, even if it's for 30 seconds, it doesn't need to be, I have to have an hour to meditate and I have to have everything perfect. It could just be that.
And what is your intention for doing it? Like you do that for what reason?
Yeah, so I do it so that I can see the view and myself in a different place. I feel sometimes that for me personally, when I'm like existing in the same way that I am, for example, doing, things like, okay, this is my schedule for the day and I like schedules. And when I do that, sometimes I forget to like try to view things differently from other viewpoints or from my own external viewpoint. So what it does is help me look inwards and see what's going on in my emotional body, my spiritual body, my mental body, my energetic body, and then connect with that internal view, and then to use that view to see the world and myself through.
Okay, great. Tell you what I do, and I don't even know where I got this, but basically I try to bring myself back to when I was a little kid. I was a very, very happy little kid, like 5, 6, 7 years old. And I had, and when I was a little kid that age, well, first of all, we didn't have any money. We didn't have any things. I didn't have all of the pressures and all of the stuff that we all have now. I was just this little being, but it's the same being. Like it's that little 5-year-old is still me. So I try to go back to that, that spot And it's very helpful because you can get very distracted and weighed down and influenced by all of the stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I do think it's important to deal with all of the stuff. You have to deal with it. And the reason why I asked like what your intention was is my intention with it. It isn't to make myself happier. It isn't to make myself even to feel more calm. It's to help me deal with life in a better way, so that I'm not dealing with things from a point of fear or stress, that I can actually deal with things from a more logic and a more empathetic viewpoint, sort of seeing the full picture of other people's viewpoints. Because when you get into conflicts with people, you feel like you're being attacked. And the last thing that you can do is see things from another person's viewpoint. And, that doesn't mean that they're always right or I'm always right, but I think it's important to be able to just, whoa, hold on, halt, pause, and see things from that viewpoint. And, going back to that 5-year-old, when I'm not, it's like viewing things from at the outside as a 5-year-old looking at adults. And, so that's kind of, I just wanted to share with you that.
I love it. That's beautiful. I love that. I think that's amazing. Do you do it for a long time, or does it vary the times that you do? Do you just not judge it and say, oh, I'm just going to meditate and see how it goes?
Well, sometimes it depends. Sometimes I set a timer, because a lot of times when I'm painting, my thoughts get in the way of being productive. So that's why I started it. Set a timer and do it there. But oftentimes I will just start my day in bed with like focusing on breathing and prayer and just kind of pulling myself out of it. Let me ask you this: if you have a lot going on in your head, can you write?
Yeah, so that's a great question. What I do is I'll do Reiki on myself, or I'll do yoga or meditate, just to release all of this stuff that's going on in my head, so that I can write from a place that I'm not judging it. Because if I just try to write, sometimes I'll think to myself, why am I thinking this right now? I'm really trying to write, and then I feel like I'm judging myself for not being able to just sit down and start writing. So if I do have a lot of thoughts going on, I'll do that first and then start writing, or I'll just meditatively write, or I'll just write all of the thoughts that are in my head and give form to them and acknowledge them and read them out loud and hold space for those thoughts, and then start to write from a different viewpoint, because I've viewed them and acknowledged it, and then I let them go, and then I'll start to write.
Okay. Now, do you write with a pen or do you write with
Yeah,
like a keyboard?
with a pen and a paper.
I agree. I do.
Yes,
I do I have like a closet full of these books.
I love
I love writing with a pen or a pencil.
Me too.
There's something about it there's something about using your hands. I was in my last podcast interview yesterday was with a guy who is a ceramics artist. So he uses the pottery wheel. And so he was just describing how there's something about using your fingers in your hands. And I didn't mention this on the podcast, but that's what it reminded me of. There's something about actually writing that it connects you to the thoughts.
I love that. That's beautiful. I totally agree. And I feel like it's that physical act of actually like writing out the word that gives it life. And it's like my energy or your energy is writing it, that it connects me to that word or to that thought. It like breathes life into it, and then I can release it into the universe when it's written down. Then it has its own space to breathe.
Yeah. Well, cool. Now, so we got the writing, which is sort of like a form of, it sounds like a form of meditation somewhat for you. And then we talked about the meditation. So can we talk about the whole physical part of this? Because they're all connected. It's like a path. I'm clearly seeing that with you. Where did that start happening?
when I was in high school, I would say I became best friends my freshman year, the first day of gym class with a girl. She was sitting in front of me and she had beautiful long red hair. And I remember telling her that. And we became best friends because of that. She encouraged me to try for cheerleading. So do you remember like the VHS, like I'm totally aging myself in the VCR. So we recorded her like that I would watch these videos every night and practice them. And so that's how it started for me with fitness from then. And then going into dance. And then as I got older, I wanted to keep, I like kept dancing and I had danced when I was little. And then I wanted to get back into it as an adult. And there's a lot of pressure on myself when I started doing ballet as an adult to be a certain size and look a certain way. And that was my own pressures that I put on myself and my own judgments. And so I got an exercise bike and I had soup cans that I would use as weights and I would use them every single day. And then I would go to ballet class and because we had to wear traditional like attire as adults too with pink tights and black leotards. That's how I started getting even more into fitness. And then originally I just wanted to look a certain way in ballet class. And so that's how it started. And then it progressed into more of like the fitness aspect with starting to learn about other ways of like working out, like running, or not just learning, but just participating in those ways, such as running, lifting weights, and these different activities, Pilates. And then I started trying these different things and made my own schedule. So each day I would have 6 days a week, something different related to fitness I would do for an hour at least a day. And then that's when I saw a woman in a magazine and her name was Jamie Easing. She's like the most famous fitness model in the world. And I said, I'm like, she's beautiful. I want to look like that. So I went to a powerlifting gym. At the time, I didn't know it was powerlifting gym. And I went there and met the owner. And he's like, you look like a skinny runner. And this girl's like, do you want to look like this? She's super muscular. And I'm like, yeah. And then he's like, okay, it's a total. So I started training like that. And then I became a bodybuilder. I switched over.
Wait a minute, you were a bodybuilder?
Yeah,
Whoa, I didn't know that.
for a really long time. Yeah, for years. Then I switched over to powerlifting and then I went back to bodybuilding and my body just kind of was like, I'm done with you. I need a break. I had a lot of injuries at my own accord because I was definitely pushing myself obsessively. That's kind of my
Right.
nature with things and did a lot of injuries. And a woman came to one day just came to the powerlifting gym and said to my coach who owned the gym, we're opening a yoga studio in Arlington Heights. And she gave him the flyers and she said, can we leave these here? And he was like, sure. And he looked at me and he's like, and you're going. And I was like, no way, I am not doing that.
So Georgia, from what you're describing, everything, at least the way I'm hearing it, everything from this fitness journey up till now is about how you look and looking a certain way and wanting to emulate how someone looks. Was there a mental portion that you're not sharing, that it was making you feel a certain way?
Yes, definitely, for sure. Mentally, I would push myself to the point of as like literally as far as I can push like my body, like, and it was an obsession. It like affected my relationships, like my family or men that I dated. It was the number one thing in my life. And that's when I realized I went to this yoga class because my coach made me, and I unwillingly went. I did not want to go. And that's when hearing this woman speak of the mind and the connection to the body, it was very much about, at first for me for a long time, just the way I looked. And then I started to look internally, and then it was about feeling stronger and feeling like empowered myself physically and then mentally that I could do something I didn't think I could. And that's kind of where the mindset switched for me.
Okay. Yeah, I think that fitness is amazing. Like, eating healthy and being able to change your body, and to get fit,
it is such a great thing to do, for at least for me and for a lot of people that I speak to, for your mental state.
Absolutely.
And also it's something that you can control. Like there's so much, and I know that concept can lead to bad places with certain
Absolutely.
people, but living in this world where so much is out of control, you do actually can control your diet and your fitness and how you treat your body, and your body will respond. That's what's so cool. It will respond. And I know, at least for me, it responds pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so amazing. It's like a miracle watching what your body can do. And then during that, instead of just, I was so focused, like you were saying, of like controlling what I was eating and controlling what I was doing. And like, it was very much like everything was just being able to control all these aspects of my life. And then it kind of switched for me when I realized that I can't control my mind. Like I can't control like these thoughts I'm still having. I would walk by like a mirror and I'd be like, you know, I'd look at myself and be like, I don't recognize myself. I'm so small, but I still didn't feel good about myself. And I'm like, well, when is that going to start? Like I look at myself and ask myself, when is that going to, like, when does that start? So that's when I realized I had to exercise my mind and my mental body and my emotional body as much as I was working out my physical body, which I did not do for a long time. And
Yeah.
that's how the journey of yoga and meditation even more so started to affect me.
Okay. That's an amazing story.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do think that it all starts with the mind. And it's interesting because people used to say that, and in my 20s I would read books, and they would always, and I did yoga, and people would always talk about um everything starts with the mind and how you view the world and your attention. And I'm like, yeah, kind of, but it's all about hard work, and
Yeah.
it's all about having the right schedule and working harder. And I don't know, at some point I think I sort of realized, just like you just expressed it really well, like you're doing all this work but your mind is still feeling terrible, or you have like
Yeah.
crazy thoughts or just disturbing thoughts. What's the
Yeah.
point? And I think that having a sound mind, I don't know what
Yeah.
the word is we're looking for, but I think that is an important place, an important starting point for anything.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And then that's when I started to see, when I would focus on my mind, like my emotional body and my mental body, the way that I would think started to change. And the thoughts that I would have and the way that I viewed myself started to change. And I wouldn't be so hard on myself if I like had like a piece of chocolate or something that I would consider normally before would be bad.
Yep. Right. Tell me about your business, because now that I know more about you, I want to know more about what you are offering, because it appears what you're offering is all of this experience that you have, and you're
Thank
sort
you.
of offering services to help people. So tell me about what you're offering to people.
It's definitely an experience to bring yourself back into yourself, like to connect your subconscious with your conscious, and then the external self to the internal self. So it's really working on not just the physical body, but all of the other bodies. So the spiritual body, the emotional body, the mental body, the energetic body, and connecting all of them together and exercising each part of those bodies as much as another part of those bodies, and offering all of those services together or individually depending on what somebody needs, but also letting them know why I offer them each time as well, so that they understand why it's important to connect those things. Because I know from firsthand, you can change the way, and as you do it, like the way somebody looks with hard work physically, but then I feel like we forget about all of the other stuff that's
Yeah.
going on in our bodies.
Yeah.
And
So
so,
what are the services again? Can you list those off?
yeah, of course. So meditation and personal training, group fitness instructing, yoga, Reiki, and writing.
Okay, writing. Okay, wonderful. Do you think that this whole concept of, I wouldn't call it mental health, but I guess there's the mental health aspect of it, but the mind and I hear this term like self-care everybody uses. I mean, it sounds like this is becoming more mainstream and people really understanding how important this is.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, and that I definitely feel agree with you 100%. And I feel that it's important to not just look on the outside, but to look internally. And I feel that it's been such a taboo subject for a long time. Like we would not we I personally remember when I was really heavy into bodybuilding and powerlifting, and like just remember just the first time I ever went to a gym, which my first experience was a powerlifting gym, and like just going into a gym and it being the aesthetics. And there's nothing wrong with that by all means with people who have that desire. But for me, the further down that I was working on my physical body, the more I personally was breaking down my mental bodies. And it was, again, of no fault of anyone's but my own, because I wasn't exercising those different parts of my body. And that's when, for example, my coach said to me, "You're going to yoga." And I'm like, no way. Like, I didn't even want to entertain the idea of anything else than what I was doing. And then learning for myself when I started to exercise those parts of my body and they all connected, how different aspects of my life changed, like the way that I would view myself, the way I would interact with other people, the way that I see myself, my quality of life. So it wasn't just like physical for me, it was also mental. Like thoughts would start to change, for example.
Excellent. So, right. So, in terms of what you do for yourself, obviously you do writing, and what do? You do meditation. And what else do you do as your whole package that you do for yourself to keep yourself physically and mentally healthy?
I do yoga, and I also do Reiki on myself, and I also work out. And then my workouts change because I love so many different aspects of fitness. Like I love weightlifting, and I love using my like physical body weight. I love to be outdoors and do activities. So I like to try different things and new things related to fitness. So I'll do all of those different things together for my self-care.
Okay, wonderful. And your website is?
It's asyouarewellness.com.
Asyouarewellness.com.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun. I'm so grateful.
You're very welcome. My name is Ricky McGuckran, and you have been listening to Eager to Know, the podcast. If you haven't already, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join me next week for another Eager to Know podcast.